Assessments will go up a minimum of 20% in the first year that a building is delivered and the board takes over. You will find out that you don't have enough money for water, gas, electric. Electric always include, you pay on your own, but like water, gas, if that's part of what's supposed to be paid. Common heat and electric is always short. Maintenance, you realize that like there's all these like contracts you need to do for different stuff, whether it be landscaping or whatever, it's all low. There's a lot of buildings that go up 100%, like literally 100%. In the building I live in, we're going to have our second special assessment within 2 years. This is Laricy Live, and I'm your host, Matt Laricy, giving you unfiltered access to the world of real estate. We cover market trends, news, and give you the honest answers that will keep you ahead of the real estate game. All right, so today we're going to talk a little bit about something that's kind of comes up a lot in the summertime, and that's buying new construction. There's a lot of stuff and a lot of different things that happen when you buy new. So we figured, hey, for all of our clients out there that are looking at buying new, we're actually launching a couple big brand new buildings, and people are always asking us all this stuff. So we figured, hey, let's knock out some questions, give you a quick tutorial on what it's like to buy new construction. So first question is buying new construction more expensive? Yes. Typically, on average, you're paying about a 20% premium for new construction. So where people get burned is that they actually buy new, okay, and then they sell too quickly and the market doesn't catch up to you, okay? So they sell for loss. So a lot of people are like, well, they just bought that in 2020 and now they're selling it in 2022, and why are they taking a loss? It's like, well, the market didn't grow 20%. And of course, it's a different area, so it depends on which area they're looking in. But I'm just saying, in general, I would say on average you're looking at a 20% return. Do you get a good return? Here's the thing: is that generally speaking, where a lot of people make a lot of money, and where a lot of investors have made their billions with the B of dollars, is buying new construction. So what happens, and this is really big in like cities like New York, Florida, and some other, well, Florida's a state, but essentially what they do is you buy before it breaks ground, and then as the building is built, they raise pricing. So, a lot of times let me back it up. Before a building can be built, a lot of times they have an LOI, so a letter of intent on the land, okay? And then they won't actually break ground until they get 20% of sales, okay? So the people get in what we call Tier A pricing, okay? So that's the first round of pricing. Before they break ground, before they close on that land, typically get the best price. Then they hit that 20%, okay? Then they start breaking ground, which means they're building. Then pricing goes up. And then as the building gets built and you start doing more sales, let's say you get to 50% of sales really quickly, you raise pricing again. Then it's 75%. Then the building is delivered and pricing is, raised again. Now, at this point, a lot of people maybe bought it for $1 million, and now that same unit, you can flip it and sell it for $1.5 million. And you haven't even taken occupancy yet. It's called reassigning a contract. So a lot of people do that when they buy. Now, here's the thing. You got to be in a really good city that's appreciating. It's got to be a really good quality building. Now, that doesn't always happen, but I'm saying like that's something that could give you a really good return on your investment. In fact, I remember 9 Walton, which is the most expensive building in Chicago. I remember a lot of the floor plans were going for maybe $1.5 million, and then the building was built and was going for like $3 million. Okay, for the same thing. The people were like reselling these things like crazy. 4 East Elm's another good example that I recall. I think they started announcing in like 2013, and then when the resales happened in 14, it was crazy. So, but you can look on the flip side, and there's other buildings. I won't name them because I don't want to give bad attention to buildings as if I'm tearing them down. I got to kind of be PC on this, but where they went up and it was pre-pandemic. And people got in at pricing, and then you look at today, and the pricing's gone down maybe $500,000. So there's a lot of people who lost $500,000. So when you talk about is there good value, well, it's all about timing. And there's certain things we can't predict. If I would have told you guys 3 years ago that you'd be wearing a mask in America for almost 3 years and we'd lock your ass down, you'd probably tell me I'm freaking crazy. You'd probably put me in the loony bin. So we can't predict things, but I'm saying overall, generally speaking, new can be a little bit of a good return on your investment. Is it worth the value? The question is, do you like new? Do you like to be the first one in? Do you like to have all the finishes that you want? Do you not want to do anything? You're paying a premium to be the first person to own it. If you like that, then do it. If you don't like that, then it doesn't matter. It's not worth it to you. I think a lot of the is it worth it to you is what do you value your time and what do you value upgrades? And sometimes you don't get all your money back, as we said, that some of these ones will go down in value, but I guess not everything in life is about money. I mean, at the end of the day, this is where you're living. Now, I look at this more on an investment perspective, but not everybody else does. I'll tell you, I bought new construction, and I think there's some good and bad about it. I mean, I also bought used construction. I think there's some good and bad about that. So, I mean, you know, I think there's a give and take in anything that you buy, and I think the biggest problem that I see with people you know, thinking this may be not worth it is that they think everything is going to be perfect. And when you buy something new, it's not necessarily new. Are there warranties that come with new construction? Generally speaking, you get a 1-year developer warranty, which means that like, hey, if there's like some sort of, you know, big crack or something big breaks, that they'll fix it. It generally isn't for like appliances or furnaces or things like that. It's generally for like bigger ticket items, roof, things of that nature. Top tips for buying new construction. Get a good inspection, okay? Make sure your developer or builder has a phenomenal track record. And find out what they've built in the past and try to call the agent up that represented his past builds if it's a smaller building. And if it's a big build, like look at like what the resale was on those buildings after they got built, and look at the resale or look at the reputation. See if you can find anything online. That's honestly the best tip I could tell you for that. Then the next tip is kind of like what I told you before: is new doesn't mean new. Everybody thinks new means no problems, and then people call me up to like, oh my God, this broke and this happened, etc. It's like, hey, listen, like shit breaks. Life sucks. It's just what it is. You know, I'm not saying like it's like you're going to have 100. I think the problem with a lot of people is they go into buying new construction thinking like, well, this is new, I'm paying a premium, and I'm like going to have zero problems forever. Like a lot of times you got to like ride these people out. So like just having the right expectations is another big thing you should know about when you're buying new construction. Why do some people love new construction and others hate it? Some people love it because they like to pick the finishes out. They like saying that they have something new. I think it's a little bit of a bragging point. I don't know. I mean, I'm not impressed by it, but I don't know. I guess I'm assuming some people are impressed to say that like they got it brand new. I think some people hate it because you pay a big premium. And I think a lot of people just don't. They're like, I don't see the value in giving you an extra 20% just to say I was the first one in here. Like, I'm cool with buying something that's 3 years old, you know? So like, I think that's why there's like a little bit of a love-hate with the new construction. What's the biggest upside of buying new? It's new. It's shiny. It's bright. You know, you ask, everybody asks all these questions. How old's the roof? How old's the windows? How old's this? It's new. It's new. It's new. It's new. You know, like when you're not buying new construction, you know, you might get a, let's say single family home, and it's 10 years old. Well, like, you know, you're probably going to have to replace the roof somewhat soon. Windows should be good. Furnace AC could break. You know, it's kind of at that time where like, you know, it could go tomorrow. It could last another 10 years. You know, but like, the one thing I always tell people is like, you know, you can have a dated kitchen, okay, but you got a brand new furnace, a brand new, you know, AC, brand new roof, and brand new windows, and that might cost you $70,000, but your kitchen's dated, and nobody gives a shit about all the bigger ticket items. And, you know, when you're buying new construction, all of the bigger ticket items are new. And you get pretty much zero return on investment for bigger ticket items. So I think that's probably the best thing you could do, and biggest upside of new is that like the actual big maintenance, typically speaking in a perfect world, you don't have to worry about. Biggest downsides of buying new construction is that like a lot of these big ticket items can have problems, right? Like the biggest downside is that if something happens, it could be like very troublesome. Like I've had clients that have had a lot of roof leaks, flashings, tuck pointing problems. I remember there was one where they forgot to cap like the sewer line correctly, and somebody's basement flooded because of it. Right after they moved in and remodeled the whole thing, or like got their designer in there and stuff like that. So like, you know, the biggest downside is that if there is a problem and it's a bigger problem, it becomes a nightmare, and then you're suing the builder, and then you're in that whole bolt, and you're like, wow, I wish I would have just bought something used. So that's why, again, when we talk about tips, make sure you do the research. What's the average build time? Depends. Single family home, you could do in like maybe 9 to 10 months. If it's a smaller condo building, like maybe 10 to 12 months. And if it's let's say like a big high rise, I mean, 2 to 3 years, So I mean, it depends. I mean, right now everything's kind of backed up. I mean, I guess if somebody really puts the pedal to the metal, like probably put the house in like 6 to 7 months, but I don't know. I feel like everybody gives you these time frames and then nobody ever meets them. Like, oh, it'll be delivering fall of 2020. And then, they deliver in like spring of 2023. And that's like another big downside actually I should bring up is that like a lot of people don't have their expectations set up on timing. Timing is everything. Like a lot of these things take forever. Are move-in dates delayed often? All the time. I don't think I've ever seen a move-in date go on time, except I know when I bought my new construction place, the target date was in May, and the pandemic, obviously, we got locked down in March. So I was like, oh, great. Let's just kind of like delay our move-in and let's not close on our place probably for like another 6 months because like I honestly just didn't want to start paying for a place because I wasn't going to live there at that point just because of everything happening. And 2, I just, didn't want to deal with closing on a new construction property. And I just assumed that this would get delayed. And then they wanted it my place was ready ahead of time and they were trying to get me to close early. So I was like, man, my entire career, I've never seen anybody meet the deadline that they want to for new construction or exceed it, meaning that you could do it early. And here it is, of course, during a frickin' pandemic, and it's my own personal property, and they want us to move in early. And in fact, I did a bunch of like TikToks and regular Instagram reels of just all these boxes of when we closed in our place, and we just moved all the stuff in there. We didn't even unpack, I think, for like 6 months. Solely because it was the pandemic and we were living in my in-laws, but it was just I would say that the odds of your move-in being delayed are higher. My case was an extreme, but it's a good example that sometimes shit happens. How far out should you be buying new construction? It depends. I mean, the further out you are, the more the farther out you are gives you the ability to be able to pick all the finishes. The closer it is to completion, the less finishes you could pick. So part of the fun things for a lot of people is picking the finishes. They really like it. I know when I picked the finishes at my place, I kind of hated it because I kept second guessing myself. And we had like a designer with you, and like I didn't like the designer's choices. I didn't think that theirs would look good, but I was kind of nervous that like the color palette that we chose wasn't going to work. So. But for a lot of people, that's the funnest part. You get to kind of pick and choose. So like the farther out you buy, the more that you can pick out. And some people kind of, it's kind of like a nice thing to do with your significant other is doing that. Do I prefer new construction? I got to be honest with you, I'm indifferent. I've bought 2 used condos that for places I've lived in my adult life that I've personally bought for living. 2 of them were used and 1 was new. I got to be honest with you, I probably prefer old just because like I'm really busy and like the stress of picking out new stuff and like the unknown of when it was going to get delivered kind of drove me crazy. I'm more of like a very routine oriented like set guide type person. So it kind of threw me off, but I think the majority of my clients really do like having new and that everything is kind of like fixed. I kind of see it as annoying. Like I got a ton of shit breaking at my place right now. Some things in the cabinets, my windows messed up, HVAC's screwed. And it's just like annoys me because I'm like, man, I paid this premium, kind of like being a hypocrite of what I said earlier, for this new. And then there you go. It's like, I got to get all these guys out here and I'm riding the builder to do it and I don't got time to deal with this BS. So I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it, but a lot of people are. I see the attraction, but that's why they make red cars, black cars, blue cars. Everybody's got a preference what they like. Are there a lot of hidden costs? Yeah, a ton. Like a ton. There's a lot of stuff that they don't include. So, some tips are like, are lights included, right? A lot of overhead lights aren't included. You got to remember that you got to do all window treatments. You got to do closets. So that's like, personally why I didn't like doing it is like, man, I was like, okay, I bought this. And then I had to get can lights throughout, which cost me like $70,000. And then I had to get, motorized shades and lights, which cost me like another 70 grand. And then I had to get closets, which were like 40 grand. And like here I'm like, a couple $100,000 into it to tell people like I got cool lights. And I know from a resale perspective, nobody gives a shit if my closets are built out or if my, I got to pull down shades or if they're electric. But like, it's just kind of like the cost of new construction. Then the other thing you have to worry about is if you're buying a condo, that they have these fictitious low assessments. So what they do is they bait you in. They're like, hey, the assessments are $1,000. And then once the building is like 90% sold, they turn it over to the board. Then the building forms a board, and once the board forms, they're like, holy shit, this budget that the developer gave us doesn't make any sense. Like, we can't operate off this. On average, guys, take notes. Get your pen and paper out, just so you know this in the future. Your assessments will go up a minimum of 20% in the first year that a building is delivered and the board takes over. You will find out that you don't have enough money for water, gas, electric. Electric always include, you pay on your own, but like water, gas, if that's part of what's supposed to be paid. Common heat and electric is always short. Maintenance, you realize that like there's all these like contracts you need to do for different stuff, whether it be landscaping or whatever, it's all low. There's a lot of buildings that go up 100%, like literally 100%. In the building I live in, we're going to have our second special assessment within 2 years. They're not big. One was like $300 and the other one was like $500. I'm not trying to sound like a jerk and saying like, like $800 isn't a lot of money. It is. I 100%, I think $5 is a lot of money personally. I'm a cheap ass, but I'm just saying in general, $800 isn't going to ruin my life, but it's just annoying, right? And to have two specials right away when you're told that assessments wouldn't get raised is a big problem for a lot of people. Now, I knew they would go up because I knew when I bought the place, I'm like, there's 0% chance that these assessments will work in the future. But there's, I sit on the board at my building, and I'll tell you right now, a lot of people didn't think that, and they're very upset by it. And I'm like, listen, you should have had somebody tell you that. And that's why we're doing a podcast like this, because you know what? You got to know these things. We have... two big new construction projects coming up. One's called Margot. It's at 144 Erie. And the other one is Loft Mansions at 617 Fulton. And we still have 2 units left at Noir at 900 West Washington. And like I tell all the people on that stuff, I say, hey, listen, these are the HOAs. Are they going to change in the future? It's probably likely, but this is kind of where they're starting. And I'm honest with people because I don't want people to have the wrong expectation. And I don't want the builder to have a bad rep in the future that they lied to them. We're saying like, listen, these are estimated costs. And that's how you should look at assessments on new constructions. These are estimated, This is probably where they're going to be around, but most likely they're going to have to go up, and you as a board are going to have to decide that. But that's a big problem when you're buying new construction. Some hidden costs is that like people aren't aware of that stuff. Is it better to buy during the construction process and pick finishes? Yeah, we talked about that. I think if you're going to do it, you may as well do it right. But at the end of the day, personally, like a lot of the choices that they choose on these, like most companies hire like a pretty high-end designer. Like they usually, like if they finish them out, they usually pick like good colors anyways. Is new construction being impacted by supply chain issues? Yeah, big time. Gaggenau is becoming bigger. Upper end like Whirlpool and Frigidaire and crap like that for appliances are being used. I would never have thought people would be putting in like Gen Air and stuff like that instead of Sub-Zero and Wolf. But Sub-Zero fridges are like, I think they're 2 years out. At least so here's a funny story with supply chain issue, right? We got a new construction at 2228 Belmont. And they were told that the Sub-Zero fridge wouldn't be in for literally 24 months, even though he ordered it. So he's like, all right, well, we're going to have to pivot. So we're like looking at different appliances he's sending me. And I'm like, listen, like we got to do something like decently high end. So I think we're going to do a Viking maybe. And then magically, like a few days ago, they called him up and said, hey, your Sub-Zero fridges are in. So it went from like, and this was like, we had like 6 weeks ago when they were told it was going to be 2 years. So we were kind of just debating on which appliances to help them choose. And then it comes in. So like the supply chain issue is messed up because they'll tell you one thing and then another thing comes. A big thing that is part of the supply chain issue is workers. So like a lot of workers or buildings are short on workers. And that's why buildings are having delays. Types of wood is on back order and stuff like that. I personally, I don't get the supply chain issue. I think it's a made up thing that people are using during this pandemic because there's more people today than there were technically. Now, I'm not saying those are working bodies, but I mean, there's more people today than there was 3 years ago. I mean, our population has gone up. So like, how is there less people working? I don't get it. Where did all these people go? Like, how did this all get messed up? My brain can't wrap its head around like how like a pandemic hit, and then all of a sudden we went from like a decent workforce to like no workforce. Like if somebody can answer the question, where did people go? Or my follow-up question to that is like, what is everybody doing that they're making all this money and then nobody's working? Because I want to know. I'm working every day. I work 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. I take less than like maybe 10 days off a year. So if I can not work just like everybody else and sit on the couch and just make a shit ton of cash, like I don't know what I'm missing, but this whole supply chain stuff seems like BS to me. Are you seeing a lot of new construction right now? We saw a big pause on new construction, and now we're seeing it kind of pick up again in our markets. I know in different parts of the country it's huge. Like I said, we have 2 big new construction projects coming up personally. We're starting to see a lot of new construction get delivered. It went on pause during like pandemic. So I feel like we're starting to see like the beginning of like new construction going to start kind of picking up again. And that's kind of why we're doing this, because we're starting to sell a lot of new construction the last couple of weeks, and us having a couple of big projects, we kind of want to loop people in on some things to kind of be aware of. Which neighborhoods in Chicago are seeing the most new construction? I mean, we're seeing a crap ton of like apartment buildings built up, but that doesn't really apply to this. But we're mostly seeing like stuff in like Westtown, Bucktown, Wicker Park, Lincoln Park, Lakeview, like smaller buildings, like 2 to 6 unit buildings, like our property. Shout out to our guy Steve, who we love. He's got that place on Belmont going up, and there's a lot of like smaller builders, we call them, in the sense that they're building like smaller projects where they're not like building these monsters like 400 unit developments. There's a lot of like custom single family homes, 2 to 6 unit buildings. Which neighborhoods are seeing the most? We talked about that. Is new construction buying process more complex? It can be. I mean, if you don't have a good system in place, we have a phenomenal. I think we have hands down the best closing process in the business, sans none. I mean, we got the best staff, and they make the process super easy. But like, it can be difficult because one, you as a consumer think that like buying new construction is gonna be easy and glorious, and then you get this contract which completely protects the developer, okay? And you're gonna bitch and cry as much as you can, say I don't want to sign it. I'm gonna tell you tough shit. You got to sign it, okay? Because there's no way around it. You can't mark it up. So then you're going to sign that contract, and your attorney's going to get in its hand, and they're going to redline like 90% of the contract, and then they're going to give that contract back to the developer, and the developer's going to tell you to F off, and then we're going to negotiate like half of what you want, and the other half you're not going to get, and you're going to call me up complaining, saying like, I can't believe they didn't give me all this stuff, the builder's unreasonable, and I'm going to tell you like, that's just what it is buying new construction, okay? So like, you just got to live with the fact that the contract sucks, okay? And if you're a lawyer out there, like, I don't care. I know you're going to bitch at me and tell me like how this isn't right. I get it. I didn't create the rules. If you want new construction, just deal with it, okay? Then, during the process, there's going to be delays that you're going to get pissed off about. They're probably going to make some sort of mistake, like they ordered the wrong cabinet or countertop in the, bathroom vanity or something like that. And then, by the time it gets delivered and we do the final walkthrough, you're going to have a million other problems with it. And then at the closing, you feel great, and then you move in and you've noticed like 10,000 different problems that you didn't notice before, and you're yelling at us, etc. So that's technically how buying new construction can go wrong. The way we make it right is we set the right expectations. We tell you ahead of time the contract sucks. We give you a checklist of what to pay attention to. We consistently help out by following up with the construction process to make sure that you're looped in, to make sure everything is done. We keep notes of all the finishes that you picked out, so when you do it, it's done accurately and the developer has it. If any problems are on it, we make sure it's taken care of ASAP. After close, and when you have problems, we follow up with the developer almost daily until it gets done. So we try to make it a better process. But if you have somebody that doesn't really know what they're doing, or if you just went to the sales office on your own, it's probably a miserable process. Let's see. How do sales centers work? It's just like anything else. Think of sales centers like going to Best Buy. You just walk in. There's a lot of companies with big buildings. They'll assign like a few people just to sit there all day. And then what they'll do is that like as people come in, they have like office hours. Like let's say like Tuesday from 11 to 1 and Saturday from 10 to 2. This thing's just open, and people just walk off the street to the sales center, and then they just buy the place. I think back in the day that was a bigger strategy. We don't do sales center office hours. I think if you want to see it, you're gonna call. Sales centers and stuff like that, I think are bigger before the internet. Now that people have the internet, they want to go when they want to go. So the reality is like, I just think like you need to have a model and you need to have people who are available pretty much at all times on call. So that when somebody wants to see it, you could go there. I mean, what if it's brand new construction? You got office hours, because this is what I've seen in my career. They have sales centers office hours from 11 to 1 on Tuesday and 10 to 12 on Sunday, let's say. And my guy wants to go Thursday at 4. I'm like, but we can't do Thursday at 4. You got to come during the sales center hours. Okay, well, I got a guy that wants to buy the place. So this is when he wants to go. And they're like, no. Okay, we'll buy something else. You think the developer knew that? No. That's why I don't do sales center hours. We'll be there whenever. Somebody wants to walk off the street, just call me and I'll send a guy there. But, I think sales centers, in my opinion, are old world thinking, but a lot of people use them, and I'm sure people are watching this like, Matt, you're an idiot. Sales centers crush it. Great. I'm glad it worked for you. Is there usually a model you can tour? They try to have some sort of model build out. So if the building's not even built yet, they'll like rent a nearby storefront and show you like, hey, here's how big the kitchen will look, etc. Once the building's built, the first thing they try to do is build out one unit to build a model so people could walk it. Have you ever had any disasters happen with clients buying new construction? I mean, yeah. We have one right now. We're still fighting with the people. The developer was an idiot, and they took forever to complete all the stuff. I mean, I honestly think they were like 9 months. I think we were supposed to originally close in November, and then I think we just closed that in March. So supposed to close in November, 4-unit building, guys. Supposed to close in March, or then we supposed to close in November. We finally closed in March. The elevator still isn't up and running. It's now May, still not up and running. My people haven't moved in yet. Their fridge, because the developer got a Sub-Zero fridge, the fridge is still not there. So there's no fridge in there right now. And then to top it off, the buyers caught the agent showing their property without their permission and like literally made the place dirty as shit. So like that's an extreme. That's a bad experience for my client. My client's not happy. Like I told you before, there was somebody just custom designed their basement. It was beautiful and it got flooded, because they forgot to cap some sewer thing. I've had somebody build a roof deck and then they found out that they put down the wrong roof. I've had people who couldn't bear with the noise above them and they found out that they forgot to put in insulation. I mean, I've literally seen everything. We sell a crap ton of new construction, so I try to tell you here's all the stuff that can happen, but it is what it is. Do you usually pick finishes? We talked about that. Are renderings pretty accurate? No, that's a big problem. A lot of times renderings are not accurate. Like they're like rough guidelines, but things change. Oh, we couldn't put a window here because of X. People are pissed. We had to put a pillar here. We found out like it wasn't gonna be able to be as big as that. And this is like before the building's built, right? So before the building's built, you're buying off a floor plan, okay? And then that floor plan changes, big time. I've seen that happen a few times and people were furious. I mean, some people pulled out. What new technology are you having to use to promote new construction developments? I mean, we have a lot of cool stuff. I mean, we've been crushing with new construction lately. I mean, we have the technology where the building can't even be built yet, and we can show you what it looks like built, have you walk through it personally, choose your finishes, and then see what it looks like finished. We have the ability to show you what the view is going to look like from every floor. We have the ability to show you what the neighborhood is like from the unit. I mean, there's crazy stuff that you could do. The virtual walkthrough stuff, I think, is going to change new construction and alleviate a lot of people's fears big time. Best advice for buyers only looking at new construction? It's a couple things. 1, know that you're paying a premium. 2, know that don't know what you don't know. Okay, meaning that don't think that this means that you're going to not have any problems. Like a lot of people just think like, oh, like I buy new, I'm not going to have any problems at all. It's great. Nope. That means you're probably going to have some problems and know that you're going to have to deal with it. Be decisive on what finishes you want to pick. I have a lot of clients that like, this kind of drives them crazy where they're not really like familiar with the whole process. I'm sorry, not with the process, with the finishes they want. And they go back and forth like 1,000 times. And it makes it a really frustrating process. Make sure that you're aware of all the hidden costs. Are lights included? Is there like upgrades on quality construction? Okay, not just like, what's it called? Like finishes, but like, what type of, drywall insulation are they putting in? Is it concrete construction? Things of that nature, like understanding that. Understanding like the fact that like, is it hardwired for electric blinds? Is it, are the closet treatments can be included? Just a lot of those type of small things. And if you're buying a condo, making sure you're aware of the HOAs that are going to change. And you know what? The other thing is parking. That's a big one to know about too. Looking for new construction. Make sure you pick a good parking space, especially in these bigger buildings. You're buying off a parking map. Really analyze that map. Know exactly where it's going to be. A lot of people pick these crap parking spaces and they don't realize how bad it is. Don't not look at the parking. That's a big one that we get later on that people are super upset about. That's all we got for new construction, guys. Check out our new developments at Margot, Loft Mansion, 617 Fulton. Margot is 144 Erie, 2228 Belmont. And get one of the last units at Noir while you can. I mean, honestly, we're probably going to be sold out of those probably by the time this podcast starts. But if you catch it while you can, 900 Washington. Thanks so much for listening to Laricy Live.